You're watching Guitar Pickin with Frazier and Chris. This is Frazier Riddell. He is a good friend of mine, and we have traveled the roads of Mississippi together back in the day, playing musical gigs.
Yes.
I don't guess there's any fancier way to put that, is there?
No. You were a guitar player, singer, designated driver at times.
At times, and then most of the time we stayed sober enough to come back with the
Kids may see this.
Yes, that's right. With the same arrangement that we got there in. We wanted to talk a little bit about some of the more unusual things about. Frazier has a store. I should start by giving you a little exposition, and that's where we are. He has a bricks and mortar store as we speak, but that it may not stay that way.
Correct.
That's something that that we'll talk about somewhere in this series. But it's called Small Town Music. It's in Canton, which is up I-55 from Jackson just a little bit. If you take a right when you hit the Canton exit, that's Peace Street, and it is on Peace Street. So Frazier has been on Peace Street in one location or another since 1997.
Correct.
Well, Frazier, I wanted to talk about some of the crazy things that you find on the road, some of the crazy people that you find on the road. Because you used to take Mondays. Frazier used to take Mondays and go and look for instruments to sell.
I did, and what got me started on that was Monty Sappington, a gentleman. He's no longer with us, but he was the father of a friend of mine, and he was into music. He played guitar upside down, but strung the right way. But he had been a gun seller long ago, when you could just put guns in your trunk from a manufacturer and go around to places selling them or trading them. And so I started riding out with him on Mondays, and we would go to mostly pawn shops or to just people that he knew. And he was into music. So at that point, when I was riding with him, it was mostly musical instruments that we were looking for.
A lot of people are not as into guitars, I guess, as you or I or some of our associates. But I want to talk maybe a little bit about some of the strangest guitar creations that you ever came across.
The strangest I ever came across. You have weird bodies on guitars and things, and sometimes you have a 7 or 8 string.
Yes.
Or mandocellos that are like a mandolin, but it's bigger and it's got 8 strings. But odd, you saw a piece today, and it was one that a mutual friend of ours used to have, and in a roundabout way, I ended up with it. And I've just kind of held on to it, even though I'm not left-handed. Would you like me to show that?
Oh, please do show it. Please bring it out. You called it something like a banana bass, right?
Well, I believe it says it on there. Banana bass.
Deo.
And this is made North Carolina somewhere. Wishkeshki. And actually it's on my website, which after 5 months, after 20 years, then going down, and now for the last 5 months it's back up.
It's back.
Smalltownmusic.com. This is probably on there somewhere. I say probably because I'm still working on this migration of the website. But this was made in the U.S., and there's lots of instrument makers that will make unusual pieces. And my friend that had this was a left-handed player, and so over the years he had many unusual guitars. Like if they put out a Rickenbacker 12-string Tom Petty version, he might have ordered 1 of 5 of those made. Actually, he did have one of those because years back I sold it for him. And sent that.
I wish I could have bought that one.
Yeah, sent it overseas to someone. But this, they made a right-handed version, and this is the left-handed version of the banana bass, which is basically an acoustic, odd-shaped acoustic, fretless bass guitar. Let's do this too.
Little Nancy
Yeah,
Sinatra.
little Nancy Sinatra there.
Okay.
So that's quite an unusual piece.
That bass is made for walking.
And outside of that, what you really look for, as much as unusual pieces, is the vintage. So back when we would go out, what was really unusual to find was 60s Gibson or Fender or Martin pieces. You know, nowadays, as time has progressed, it's like 70s is as hard to find as 60s was then in the vintage guitar pieces.
And those things are gorgeous. I mean, if you look at like maybe a 70s Gibson Hummingbird, something like that, just beautiful pieces.
Yes. I have an old, when I worked in Nashville before moving back to Mississippi, I still have a Gibson SJ, which probably I played with you on some of those gigs.
I think so.
I finally retired that instrument. Didn't even have a pickup in it, so I would play with my PA live, but I would just mic that guitar. Great sound. And it's a 65 SJ, and that's back from when I worked at Gruen's. I got a great deal on it, and like many things, as we move, and because small town music is 26 years going now, and I have instruments that go back before then. It's if you got something that's quality, it's going to hold its value or even increase in value. Like when you watch those shows, the Antiques Roadshow.
Yeah, which is kind of like what I was thinking about when I was thinking about putting this show together. I was thinking, Frazier's going to have some stuff.
Yeah, but you're going to have to give me some time to look up that stuff. You caught me off guard here, and we just started this out of the blue.
That's right. I busted in here with a camera today, and I said, Frazier, let's do a segment.
Because I do have several unusual pieces, but I've been consumed with getting my website back up, and a lot of those pieces are archived on the website, so I can go back, even if I sold them, and I still have pictures of those items somewhere.
Yeah.
And I told you one earlier that I sold for someone. I had a 59 Dakota Red Fender Precision bass. That bass ended up being worth around $20,000.
That's amazing.
Years back, when we first moved from my old location on the other side of town, and we moved down here to where it's a family property that was an old cotton gin, and we had the business up here within there. When I first had moved down, my brother had a friend that came here one day, and he had a pre-war Martin. And it was rough as could be. The neck had been snapped off and kind of put back together and done solidly. But still, it was a very rough piece that he had found in a fishing boat
In a fishing
that he
boat?
bought. Yeah. He bought a boat, and for some reason it was a guitar. And listen, I've heard stories of people. I know. Well, a guy came here one time that found an old Martin in the trash. It wasn't as valuable as this one. He literally found it in the trash. Think about it. Years ago, in the 40s, a Martin cost, I don't know, $100, whatever it was, $100, $200.
But since that time, they've increased considerably in value.
And somebody bought it for their kid, and then it sat around the house, and then, like any garage sale, sometimes you get rid of things just because it's time for it to go. But this one that was messed up, I sold that one for him, and I believe the sale price on it was $13,000. That was probably 12 or 13 years ago.
That is amazing.
And it was a dogged out instrument, but it was a pre-war Martin, a 40 or 41 Martin.
Kind of like Tony Rice's Martin, maybe?
Yep.
Tony Rice? Okay. That 1937 thing that he played. And if you don't know Tony Rice, you need to look him up if you love music, because Tony Rice, what a picker that guy was.
Well, we have a Mississippi picker of the mandolin a lot, Marty Stewart.
Oh, yes. And Marty Stewart is a guy who collects vintage guitars.
I hear that he owns some of the original Lore Gibson mandolins, and those are ones that were made in a specific era by a specific person, that they're probably, I think George Groom, when I worked there, had a few of those.
I think if it's special, then Marty Stewart probably owns one. I'll tell you this, there's on YouTube just a magnificent collection of clips, as you might check out, that little website called YouTube. But Marty Stewart's on there, and he's playing a B. Bender Telecaster that was owned by Clarence White from the Byrds.
Oh,
And
my.
he owns that guitar now. He came across it, and this is something for him to tell, really. And we've got to get him on this show.
Yeah, well, I mean, me and Marty know each other like this.
Of course.
Yeah.
As all musicians do, It's like one big happy music family,
That guitar sounds cool. I don't know if I want to watch that video because I might drool.
I tell you, the guy, he knows how to procure instruments. I think he got in good with Clarence. It makes it sound kind of sinister. It wasn't sinister at all. Got in good with Clarence's sister. Clarence White, by the way, was a fantastic bluegrass picker. People didn't know that about him, but I mean, the guy could really, really play bluegrass, and then he joined up with the Byrds and brought his skills to bear and created some fantastic sounds. But yeah, we got to get Marty Stewart on this segment.
But I'm in this business, and when it comes down to keeping that old instrument or having chicken on the table, you no longer have the instrument.
Many of us in this business are like starving artists, right? I mean, sometimes you got to sell a painting. So you,
I've done that.
You've said, yeah, that's right. You have. You've
Bill
sold
Abel, who I am actually close with, it'd be interesting to talk with Bill. Bill is up in the Delta now in Duncan, and he lived in Canton for a little while. That's when I got to know him. Mm-hmm. Well, I have 2 or 3 paintings left out of 4 when we did some trading one time. And I liked what he did with the paintings, so he traded paintings for some music gear that he wanted.
Now, Bill Abel, when I was at Delta State University, used to play with T-Model Ford.
Oh, he's played with, several. Yeah, I don't know if it was T-Model.
We're just name dropping here, of course.
Yeah, it was. I don't know if it was him or someone else. He came with an older blues guy, and I got those 2 a gig at one of the Chamber of Commerce events, and it was great. I don't know if everybody loved it, but man, I loved it.
Well, I tell you what, you've got to come across some interesting people too. You ever come across one that really stands out? One of these real Mississippi personalities.
Okay, let's see. The easiest to think about here, I'll say close to home. Okay. Close to home from Canton is Bucky Barrett. Now, not a lot of people know him, but in the last probably 7 years or decade of Roy Orbison, he was Roy's guitar player.
I did not know that.
And he was in Nashville in the early days. And so he was a studio musician, back when not every single person that you met waiting a table or pumping gas was a studio musician wannabe. And so Bucky is still around in the Nashville area. He lived in East Nashville, where I did for a while. And so that's a close to home. I saw his niece just this weekend at an event. We discussed Bucky a little bit. Now moving on a little further from my Nashville days, of course my biggest brush with greatness was Dolly. Because I worked...
I didn't know you knew Dolly.
Well, I did... No.
Okay, I'll put you on the spot.
No is another thing.
I'm watching a Netflix documentary about her right now. Phone happens.
Yeah, that's not a big deal. So I worked at Dollywood. So I knew several of the relatives because I ran sound. I went up there to East Nashville to be in a band, and that band was kind of strange and it fell apart. I went to Dollywood. They needed a sound tech. The keyboard player, the main guy, was a music ed major. I was too. And I kind of fell into it and I got the job. So for 1 season, I worked there. And it was a great experience. Dolly did come to the park one time. Me being in the entertainment section, I got to just be on the side helping to organize everybody coming in, going to get her a Diet Coke, doing whatever. And I got the photos on my website. I got a great photo. I'm not going to run upstairs to try and find it right now. Well, no, there it is.
Oh, you got
Figured
it.
I had more than one.
Okay.
That is my John Davison Day looks. That is me 30-something years ago. And but anyways, at the very end of the day when she came, that's the bottom of the Dollywood sign. Of course, that stage is probably not even there anymore.
Well, it's changed a lot. I've been watching some YouTube videos because I want to go there. I really do. I love roller coasters.
It was Susie Boggess was there, just doing a little bitty solo gig on a stage. She later actually did some pretty good things in Nashville and got bigger. And
Yes.
I didn't know her that well, but I would help when she needed to do things with sound in certain areas. But of course, we never stayed in touch after that because I moved back 1 season. And I was back in Nashville because they had an off season and I was not top of the chain. So I did not get to work during the off season.
Well, I'm going to tell you, Frazier, when he moved back, he started enriching lives here in Mississippi. I'm not just buttering him up, but but we did that together for a little while. We played gigs together. But the first time I ever saw Frazier was in Yazoo City. The Frazier Riddell Band and Risque Ray and the Swing Set
Oh
played a
man.
festival there with the Guess Who as headliners, and I had the greatest time. I thought they were a great band, and I said, you know what? Maybe one day I'll be good enough to do that. And I was just a kid. I think I was 19 or 20 years old, and then lo and behold, like 3 or 4 years later, I was out with Frazier on some weekends, making a little bit of eating money when I was in college doing that. I think the first time we actually played a gig together, I was at the end of the rope financially. I didn't let you know this at the time, but I was at the bank. I think I was depositing the last $20 check that I had, and I got the cell phone call, and you said, "Yeah, you want to make $1.50 tonight?" And I said, "Hell's yeah!" And that kept me in Fruity Pebbles for a while.
Yeah. Sometimes, I have to admit, there have been times when I get a gig and I'm not looking forward to it. That's just the way it is. Now, Risque Ray, when you saw me with that band, I played mostly guitar and harmonica and sing, but I was playing saxophone.
Yes.
And that, besides the duet I did with Shane much later on, the Risque Ray was one of the funnest things that I ever did. Some of those guys are still around in Jackson, not all of them. And but I played saxophone. It was a swing band, and it was just fun.
So, can we prevail upon you to do a song for us?
Sure. I hadn't got my saxophone out. And this year during Lent, actually, an old guitar student of mine from many years ago is an Episcopal priest in Ridgeland now. And he did a songwriter series. And so we discussed songs, and towards the end of the set I was doing, and he asked for, which sort of, as he said, everybody's got that song. It's like, I remember seeing a clip of David Bowie doing Space Oddity on a 12-string, and he said, "This is the last time I'm going to do this." He was tired of doing it. He was tired of being asked to do Space Oddity. And I don't know if people get tired of doing Wagon Wheel. Well, Darius Rucker didn't write it, but I wonder if he gets tired of doing it. And or Mustang Sally, or
Probably.
We call that this being a holy season, we can talk about the trinity of cover songs. To me, around here, at least in this area, the trinity of cover songs is Mustang Sally, Brown Eyed Girl, and Wagon Wheel.
And that's what they do.
And there's a few other close ones in there that do that. Now,
it's no shame to love those songs, by the way, but musicians
right.
get a little bit tired of playing them sometimes.
this is just a guitar that was sitting around on a stand, so it's not quite in tune. But anyways, this song I wrote over 20 years ago. It is on iTunes. If you dare to Google Frazier Riddell and spell it correctly in iTunes, you'll find what I got on iTunes. I hadn't put much on there lately, but I got stuff on there going a ways back. And this one, I grew up Baptist. I'm now Catholic, but I grew up Baptist. And after I wrote this song, I felt like I needed to sing it in front of my mom before I put it on a CD and released it. So
it's a good spiritual song.
It's
it really is.
It is.
It's got good biblical, a sound biblical theology to it.
Yes. Let's see. Is it in A? I think it is. With no further ado, we'll do it.
Okay.
You can drink beer and also love Jesus. You can drink beer and love Jesus too. You can drink beer and also love Jesus. There is room for the meshing of these two. Now, I'm not saying that you should should get sheep-faced. I'm not saying you should pass out and forget. And if you do, you should ask for forgiveness, so you can drink beer and love Jesus too. Yes, you can drink beer and also love Jesus. You can drink beer and love Jesus too. You can drink beer and also love Jesus. Yes, there is room for the meshing of these two. Now the Bible tells us not to be drunken. Oh, but nowhere does it say we can't drink. Yes, and Jesus turned tap water into merlot, and some of them folks drank wine and loved him too. You can drink beer and also love Jesus. You can drink beer and love Jesus too. You can drink beer and also love Jesus. Yes, there is room for the meshing of these two. Harmonica. This is where the harmonica goes. And I wear the old Bob Dylan thing around your neck where you can play it while you sing.
The rack.
Yep, the rack. I actually have one of the racks.
Medieval torture it.
Much more sturdy when you do play. Here we go. We're coming out of the harmonica solo. Now the moral of this story is forgiveness. And forgiveness, it is up to me and you. His forgiveness lies in wait every moment. Yes, it's free and it's even better than brew. But you can drink beer and also love Jesus. You can drink beer and love Jesus too. You can drink beer and also love Jesus. Yes, there is room for the meshing of these two. But please don't leave your bottles under the pew.
All right. This is why I wanted you guys to meet Frazier.
And I have to give the tag end. If you go to iTunes, I got a version I'm very happy with, but it was in the very early days of the writing of it. And as I performed it live, that last line, please don't leave your bottles under the pew, that came from Alan Burrows. You know Alan. And Alan used to do some of the gigs that we do at coffee shops or little restaurants on the square. And one night Alan said, you know, your last line of that song, instead of being, again, there's room for the meshing of the two, it should be, please don't leave your bottles under the pew.
That's great.
Alan is a good writer, but he's kind of given up on that, and he doesn't play much these days. That's an example of how the business can be really tough. I mean, I know, I have a friend, Dickie Brown, from Nashville days, that got a number 6 country cut. Tried to keep writing and get into the business after that because he knew the people, the two brothers out of the Headhunters. And he hit brick walls, and nothing but brick walls. And so he just went back to doing woodwork. And but he did pretty good with that one song.
Hey, lots of people end up doing that. I mean, we're talking about people like, you know, if you weren't Bob Dylan or Donovan or somebody like that back during the 60s, sometimes you ended up laying carpet.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you, Frazier, and I want to thank you for bearing with us through our crazy stories and our good time talk here from back in the day. But this will happen again. Guitar Pickin will maybe we got at least 3 episodes in us, maybe.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
A little preparation, and you never know where we could go with this.
Small Town Music is the store. We're going to talk also on a future episode about how these stores, small town stores, and Small Town Music is a small town store.
That's a good other segment talking about small business.
But they are evolving, and Small Town Music has evolved. So smalltownmusic.com is probably the main place you want to start.
Smalltownmusic.com.
That's on the radio.
That's my most famous song ever, I think. Is that one. I'm telling you.
That one has actually made it onto the radio.
For years. For years. But please visit smalltownmusic.com, and thank you to all you out there checking out WLBT online. And thank you, Chris.